everybody? Welcome back. It's season 2, episode number 2 of the Fantasy Cast coming at you. Very special week this week. Why? Because the NFL returns this Thursday night. This Thursday night, football is back. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. He's Ty White. I'm Lachlan McTagg. Checking in with you guys once again. This is going to be a great episode. Little previews coming up. We're also going to get into some starts and sits as well. But I know the long weekend just recently passed. So how are you doing, Ty?
Oh, I'm wonderful, Lachlan. Like you said, this time of year, obviously it's exciting when school gets started off again. I started classes up, but also that can be a depressing time. And that's why the NFL purposely starts their season coinciding with the beginning of school to make all those youngsters feel better. I certainly feel better. I'm so excited because we have a great slate of games. But other than that, I'm enjoying downtown life. I'm walking around downtown lately. How's Arizona treating you, Lachlan? Still good?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've been hanging out, making some trips to Tempe, up to main campus as well too. I think I said this. Oh yeah, last week it was the day before the first ASU football game.
Yes.
By the way,
the preseason or whatever. Yeah.
American college football, so fun.
Unmatched.
So fun.
Yeah. I saw some crazy stat that out of the top 7 stadiums in the world, not sports venues, but stadiums, 7 of them are college football stadiums.
100%. And it's not because of the crazy architecture in the stadiums. It's just the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And when we went to the football game on Thursday, it was a night game because it was still even the stadium temperature at 9:30 at night was still 95 to 100 degrees. It was so friggin' hot in that stadium, but my God, it was a good time. I lost my voice by the third quarter.
That must be incredible.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, we played NAU, Northern Arizona, and we won by 37. So it was just a lot of fun, and I'd never experienced something like that before. We all
absolutely.
It was game day. We finish up classes on a Thursday, and you're like, all right, let's go. You get all dressed up in your gold, and we had a lot of fun. But then rest of Labor Day was nice. Getting no classes on Monday, nice little day off there was good. So yeah, I'm so ready for football to be back.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even talk about college football. Watched that on Saturday. Obviously,
there was some crazy games.
Yeah, the Saturday night one was
crazy.
Great. That was ND and Ohio State, and even yesterday I was watching. Well, this is being recorded on the Tuesday. Yesterday I watched the Georgia Tech Clemson game that was on. Even that was interesting. I mean, Clemson was not doing well, and Georgia Tech's defense was playing well for a while. But super exciting. Lots of big upsets there. But this isn't an NCAA podcast. This is an NFL podcast, and it's season 2, episode 2 of the Fantasy Cast. And this one's a bit different than perhaps other episodes that we've done last year because, we are bringing back a familiar favorite, and probably our favorite segment on the show too, I would argue. We're bringing back starts and sits, of course. I mentioned that last episode, and that will be the primary focus of this episode for a couple of reasons. One being that the NFL actually hasn't started yet while we're doing this. And 2, it's easier to make some predictions like starts and sits and give you guys perhaps some needed fantasy advice for the upcoming week of exciting inaugural of the season football action.
Yeah. I mean, great matchups. First of all, the Thursday nighter, Bills Rams in LA.
Doesn't get much better than that.
That's a hot start for the season.
Potential
Very, very
Super Bowl
hot
preview,
start.
if you look at it
that. Yeah. Definitely leaning towards that direction for sure. But yeah, whoever loses that game, that's kind of a top. That loss has a big asterisk over it, I think, because that loss, depending on division structures and whatnot and seeding down the road. I mean, that could that opening night game could actually play in significantly factoring where the seeding is determined by the end of the year. But we're not playoffs. We're not talking about playoffs. Come on.
Stay focused here. Still regular season.
So we're also not going to do any waiver wire picks today.
Yeah.
And that's because we haven't actually had a game.
Yes.
Or a matchup yet this season. Week 1 is starting soon. So
we can't give you too much set in stone info, but we can give you some advice and based off what we already know and what NFL scouts have been saying and whatnot to try to give you the best fantasy advice. So before we hop into this, and it's going to be a bit of a shorter episode because we're just doing starts and sits, we're going to give you our criteria. Now, last year we had criteria for our starts and sits being quarterbacks have to score at least 15 points for it to be a successful start. Less than 15 is a loss. Wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends had to be above 10 points, and that was pretty much it. We didn't really do defenses or kickers at all. This year, we're going a slight change. We discussed before the episode, tactical reasons, of course. So quarterbacks are still going to be, you have to hit 15 points is the bar line. If we say start Trevor Lawrence and he gets 15 or more points, then we were correct. If he doesn't, then we're in the pooper and getting absolutely nothing. Wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends, that's the one that is the biggest change this year. Last year it was 10, as I mentioned. Loch and I decided that this year we're going to actually go with 12 points.
Yeah.
So a bit above average for any fantasy team start, because you certainly don't want a player to have less than 10 points. But we're even raising that a little bit higher to get to the 12 mark. And that goes for sits as well. If we tell you to sit a player and he gets less than 12 points, we count that as a win as well.
And I know, like, before, I mean, some of you guys are probably thinking, oh, they want to make it easier on themselves, upping it to 12. No, I mean, to be fair, a lot of players are projected in and around that 12, 11 point marks. So, I mean, just based off that alone, setting the bar at 12 this year is not
we're walking the line.
Not crazy.
Johnny Cash, we're walking the line. And we're keeping, So we're obviously and we mentioned this last year, we're not going to tell you to, start Stephon Diggs, start Justin Herbert. If anything, for those big players, we'll tell you to sit them, and that would be our bold prediction. But we're not going to make any obvious, or try not to make any obvious picks. The last thing we're actually adding, not being instated this week, but being instated next week, we're going to add a defense, at least one an episode for a start or a sit, and the bar there is going to be 5 points. So if we say start Philly's defense, they get 5 points or more. That's a win for us. So to recap, quarterbacks 15, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends 12, defenses 5s. We're not going to do kickers. Let's be honest, no one cares. That's a bit harsh.
Okay, kickers are people
kickers.
too. We love kickers. Yeah. Don't get us wrong. Kicker.
Yeah. Potentially
Special
down
teams
the road.
Yeah.
If we really feel like there's a huge one that needs to be said, we say it. But for right now, we're going to stick with the main positions. So, Lachlan, that brings us to let's go with starts first, I think. Let's start with the positives.
Yeah.
And you can take it away.
Yeah. First start I got here, Rondale Moore, receiver for the Cards. Cardinals are playing in Phoenix this week, opening the season against KC.
In your backyard.
Yeah, a few minutes up the road in Glendale. I'm saying start him because the other options around him are Hollywood Brown, Zach Ertz, and AJ Green. All more veteran guys. Rondale Moore is very quick as well, and I think he's gonna have to step up and play a big part in this offense with Kyler Murray. Also due to the fact that DeAndre Hopkins is missing at least the first half of the season. So we're saying start him. I think it's going to be worthwhile. I think it's also going to be worthwhile to have him on your roster for at least the first half of the season too.
Yeah, that's a very good pick. They're at KC. That should be, they're KC. They're playing KC, I should say.
They're hosting Kansas City this week, yes.
And that should be a phenomenal game. And not to mention, KC don't have Tyrann Mathieu anymore. Their defense on paper is not as strong as it was perhaps in the last couple of years, at least as far as the secondary goes. And we saw last year, Rondale Moore had some incredible flashes of brilliance. I mean, that guy, when you said fast, that's an understatement. This guy is absolute trackers. This guy's a horse out there. He's a great player. So that's gonna be our first start. Our second start out of the 5, very interesting one, and I like this player a lot. Thank you, do as well, being also a partial Bills fan like myself. It's gonna be Isaiah McKenzie at the LA Rams on Thursday Night Football. Now, why are we telling you to start Isaiah McKenzie? Don't they have Diggs and Davis? Well, yes, they do, and that's part of the reason we're telling you to start Isaiah McKenzie is because a large part of the Rams defense, I'm sure, will be focused on players like Stephon Diggs, the focal point of the offense, as well as Davis is supposed to have a big year. The Rams are familiar with him. So Isaiah McKenzie is going to be a player who flies under the radar a little bit. He's going to play a Cole Beasley type role in that offense, and Cole Beasley was very good when he was with the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo also passes the ball more than 70% of the time. 74% of that time, they target wide receivers. So Isaiah McKenzie looks like a pretty good pick this week. Maybe a sleeper for a touchdown, but I could see him just off PPR yards and receptions, him definitely eclipsing that 12-point mark playing the Rams.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And our next start is another wide receiver in a similar spot. We're going Hunter Renfrow. And I love his game. I love everything about his game, what he does, his what do you call it? The China route?
The China route, one of the nastiest routes in football.
Yeah, he executes that to a T. And in an offense where, you just added arguably the best receiver in football in Davante Adams, as well as Darren Waller, too. A couple of dogs up front there. And I think Hunter Renfrow, he always just finds a way to get open. Mm-hmm. And him and Derek Carr have had a very, very good connection. And he's not a guy as well that he's not touchdown dependent. I don't think. I think he can get there simply off short yard catches. But
yeah, for sure.
That's a start for me.
Yeah, and they're facing the Chargers obviously, and like you said, like a word like you mentioned that I feel like he's a cheeky player. He's a very sneaky fly under the radar player, and that's the perfect type of players who we like to pick for starts and sits. Additionally, you could also mention the fact that the Chargers probably won't have J.C. Jackson week 1. And if you look at someone like Derwin James on the Chargers defense, like I say, this is a Chargers fan, loves to man mark, especially players like Travis Kelce in the NFL. He's done a very good job of that. So he's probably going to be on a player like Waller or on Davante Adams. He's not going to be focused. The Chargers' best defensive player is not going to be focused on Hunter Renfrow. And there's not going to be necessarily a star corner on him. So he's a very good option to start. Next one, we're going to go with our first running back of this episode. It's going to be Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans at Indianapolis week 1. Now, Dameon Pierce is someone, obviously he's a rookie player, made the depth chart over someone like Rex Burkhead. He's a stud. He's a very physically strong, very built well running back. He's also quick. He's got some nifty feet on him, great feet in college. Yes. But he's going to get, the main reason Loch and I like him this week, he's going to get a lot of touches. Now, Indianapolis does have probably the top 3 defense in the NFL, but we can easily see him getting a lot of touches and potentially targets out of the backfield that he will be comfortable with him eclipsing 12 points, whether that be on the ground, just pure yards and touches, or not many yards and targets whatsoever, but he gets 2 touchdowns during the game or something like that.
Yeah.
In short yardage. And that, that could even play towards the end of the game if this turns out to be a blowout in favor of Indianapolis. That doesn't necessarily matter for players in fantasy football, especially running back on like Dameon Pierce on a team like the Houston Texans. Yeah. So we like that start a lot.
Yeah, I love it too, just because, again, the touches and the volume for running backs in PPR leagues is so important.
Yes.
I remember I picked up James Robinson off the waiver wire a couple seasons ago in week 1, and I had him on my bench, or I had him in my lineup for the rest of the year, and I loved him just because it didn't matter that he was on one of the worst teams in the league. He was a 3-down back, and I think Dameon Pierce is absolutely going to be a 3-down back, throw him in all situations, Swiss Army knife kind of player for the Texans this year. And it won't matter that they're going to be contending for a lottery pick.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter in PPR leagues when you have a guy like Dameon Pierce getting touches constantly, and I think that's going to be the case for him this year.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Moving on, last start. It's sad for me to say this a little bit, but Julio Jones playing back in his former division.
If you don't know why that's sad, it's because Lockman. So
yeah, but no Russell Gage this week. Also, no Chris Godwin this week. As of right this current moment when we were recording this episode, both of those players are slated to miss week 1.
Or highly unlikely to play.
Yes.
In week 1, yeah.
So Julio, all of a sudden slides right into that number 2 option. And there's something about Tom Brady and, picking up former stars, or I guess I would call Julio. I don't know.
He's still a star, perhaps not as bright of a star as he was previously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a nice way to put it.
But you know what I mean? It's like stuff like that where he like the whole Antonio Brown thing with the Bucks. Like Antonio Brown had a couple actually like decent performances with them. So if he can do it, I think Julio can absolutely do it. So that's why if you're thinking about sitting Julio this week, or if you didn't even have Julio on your radar to crack the lineup this week, I'd put him in there.
Yeah. And he, once again, like he's someone, I think he's around the 50% marker rostered in leagues. And that's actually could be, that's like a small waiver wire pickup too. And like I didn't even say this before, but Isaiah McKenzie, about 13 to 14% rostered in leagues. And he should have a pretty good season. So I'd recommend highly picking him up. But Julio really liked this week against Dallas because like you said, like Brady and big name players, like big name stars, rather than a huge star right now, or used to be a star like Gronk when he was on the team. They're good against good teams and reliable against good teams. And Julio, throughout his career, has been an extremely reliable receiver, big, deep threat, end zone threat too. And that's the reason that we're telling you to start him this week. We think it's very likely that Julio Jones gets a touchdown, if not two, in this game. That's almost a fantasy cast guarantee. Almost. Not quite.
Not quite.
But we very much like that option, and that's why he's our fifth start. So recap, our starts are Rondale Moore at KC. I keep saying that. Rondale Moore versus KC. Isaiah McKenzie at the Rams. Dameon Pierce at Indianapolis. Hunter Renfrow at the Chargers. And Julio Jones at Dallas. And that's a Sunday night game, by the way. Big stage.
It's a good game.
Big player.
I cannot wait to see the Cowboys lose week 1. I cannot wait. On primetime television as well, that excites me so much.
I can't wait to see the NFL memes post the next day.
Yeah.
What's the letter of the day, baby?
Letter of the day.
I think we know, Cowboys fans. You're very familiar with that. But yeah, those are our starts. On next to our sits for week 1, we also have 5. And Loch, we talked before the episode.
This is your main man right here. This is getting personal with this first sit here.
Like, if we get these wrong, this could be a bunch of City Boy clips thrown back in her face with Kawhi laughing it's that level. Hopefully not. It's that level. And last year we did have some success picking big people, but I got quite a few big names in the start sets. But first, Lachlan, we're going to start off with someone that absolutely everyone hates in the NFL. Even Patriots fans don't want this guy on his team. That might be a little bit harsh, but it's Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, we're sitting him. We're sitting his butt. We're sticking him on the bench no matter what. I don't care what anyone says. Patriots fans, you can talk all you want. He's by the way, they're at Miami. Technically, he's a running back 2 on the team because obviously they have Damian Harris, but this guy's projected for over 10 points. Are you kidding me? ESPN and Yahoo, what a friggin' joke in PPR leagues. This guy should be sat on the bench for all of your games.
My God.
Maybe if Damian Harris get injured, but I got a grudge against this guy, Lachlan. I mean, last year, I literally needed this friggin' guy to get 3 points, and I would have won my game that week. But he shows up with like 2.25. And I'm sitting there like, thanks, Ramondre.
That's fantasy football. That's fantasy football for you right there.
Dropped his lazy behind as soon as that week ended. And a little bit of a grudge against Ramondre, but I'm comfortable sitting him against the Miami team, who is vastly improved from last year's team, not just offensively, but defensively they're stronger. They're another team that's like more core together. They get another year with each other, and I like it. Ramondre Stevenson, our first and easiest sit of the day. If he eclipses 12 points, this might be a big slap across the face, but
yeah, definitely, it absolutely will.
Yeah.
Wow, that felt oddly personal with that analysis.
You know what it was? It was a load off my back. I couldn't feel better to say that. Sorry, Ramondre, but I don't like you that much, buddy.
Jeez.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, and we're moving on. Moving on to another running back in that same game. Actually, we're telling you to sit Chase Edmonds, and this is an interesting one because Miami's offense is loaded, absolutely loaded. And I don't think they're going to have a lot of production coming on the ground. I think they're going to let Tua air it out to Jalen Waddle or, I don't know, maybe Tyreek Hill. You know, like I just
maybe.
I don't. And Chase Edmonds has always been a running back, at least from what I've seen, that has been very reliant on pass catching.
Yep.
For getting a lot more production. He was like that in Arizona last year, and I think it's going to be similar. And I just think if he gets a couple catches, they're going to be check down yardage.
Yeah,
like I don't think he's going to be a legitimate deep threat in that offense just because of how many good receivers Miami has.
For sure.
But yeah, that's essentially why we're telling you to sit him this week.
Yeah. Also, New England's got a great defense moving from year to year. Whenever you have Belichick as your guy back there, you're going to be pretty good. I mean, Belichick he was on the Browns with Nick Saban, like in the 80s / early 90s when they had a pretty darn good defense. He also was the defensive coordinator of the Giants when they had Lawrence Taylor. So this guy, he knows what he's doing when it comes to defense. And New England has always had a good defense. Maybe a string of no-namers, let's be honest, Lachlan. Like, who are they drafting every year?
He created a monster in J.C. Jackson.
Yeah.
Who obviously a great addition for the Chargers. Unfortunately, probably won't be in this week. But
he's one of those guys who doesn't play at a big college. He played at Maryland, Lachlan. J.C. Jackson.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know that, but he's comfortable taking these no-namers and putting them into good positions. But the point is, New England's always got a good defense. And Dolphins aren't a particularly great O-line whatsoever. So.
No. But, sit Chase Edmonds. Moving on.
That's 2 running backs in the same game, so we'll definitely keep an eye out on that. Our next sit is going to be, now, big name here. And I remember last year, Lachlan, we told guys we got him wrong last year. We told people to sit him. His name is Adam Thielen, of course, wide receiver. Used to be the star wide receiver of the Vikings, now taken over by Justin Jefferson. He's projected for 13.68 points against Green Bay. And they are... I think they're actually at home this week facing Green Bay. But we're saying this, and this is a bit of a bold prediction because obviously Adam Thielen's a good player. Last year in his first 2 weeks of the NFL season, he had little to no points, or like 1 week he literally had 1 target. I think it was week 2. He had 1 target or 3 targets, 1 reception, 0 yards. So he was kind of a dud in the first couple of weeks last year, but then he started to turn it up towards the latter half of the year. We expect something similar to that, especially because Justin Jefferson is just so good. So when Kirk Cousins is like passing the ball, he's going to go to the focal point of the offense, which is, of course, Jay Jettas. Not to mention
you can also argue that Dalvin Cook is the focal point of the offense as well. They have it's kind of a 1A, 1B thing with those two because they're extremely talented at their craft.
No, they're of course very good, but that's also another point. You got to stick with the run game. Well, very good run game with Dalvin Cook. They like using him a lot. They even have a tight end, Irv Smith, who's supposed to have a pretty big season, or at least a breakout year for him. Great in the passing game there. Thielen's not completely reliable. He's more of a touchdown dependent PPR person, which makes him slightly unreliable. However, most weeks he should be somewhat of a decent start. But this week we're predicting against Green Bay, who should have a top 3 to 5 defense in the NFL this year, Lachlan. Some dogs over there in Green Bay, including, of course, the great Jair Alexander. We think that he's going to be a sit, which means less than 12 points this week versus Green Bay.
Yeah. Pretty valid, if you ask me.
I was nicer to Adam than I was to Ramondre. We'll just say that. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Next sit, we're going TJ Hodgkinson. The Lions are playing the Eagles this week. The Eagles, their defense is looking like a bit of a wagon right now. Their defense is looking pretty nice.
I'm to jump on it.
Yeah. And I don't know. We both agree that we don't see a lot coming TJ Hodgkinson's way this week. I think it's going to be Amon St. Brown and DeAndre Swift carrying the majority of the work. Maybe mixing a couple catches for Hodgkinson, but I think he's going to fall below that 12-point threshold.
Yeah, well, Hawkinson, there's no doubting that he's a great tight end, and he's got a lot of talent, and we saw that in years prior that Hawkinson's a great player in the NFL. However, one of the reasons he's great is because he's a blocking tight end.
Yes.
Which is something that you don't see as much of in today's NFL, and used to be one of the sole purposes of the tight end in its original usage in the NFL as a position. He's a great blocking tight end, not completely used in the pass game all the time as someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was starting to really, really spike it up towards the end of last season. And they got a good run game. They got a decent O-line. Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, and they got some Jamal Williams. Despite what people might think about him, he's a fantastic leader. If you've seen those clips from Hard Knocks, I actually really enjoy listening to his speeches. And of course, you have the great DeAndre Swift, who's a PPR monster. Hawkinson, though, of course, he's going to get some targets. Once again, kind of touchdown dependent. But we don't think against great defense like Philly, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, they got some dogs out there that he's going to eclipse that 12-point mark. So we're putting him on the sits this week.
And this is important as well. TJ Hodgkinson, for me at least, is not a consistent sit this season by any means.
Yep.
It's just this week, I just don't see him getting above that 12-point threshold.
Yeah, that's the same with a lot of the players that we're saying, like Chase Edmonds. I mean, he's projected for 14. So, these could be good starts potentially, and
down the road maybe.
But unless you're Ramondre Stevenson, in which case you can stay on the bench for the rest of the year. Thank you very much. All right, moving to our final player, and we want to make it interesting. We're going with a quarterback for our 10th out of 10th start/sit, and it's T. Lawrence Lachlan. It's former Clemson Tiger, former college national champion, former Heisman winner, and he's at the football team. At the Commanders.
The Commanders.
Called the Commanders this year. I don't mind the uniforms.
I'm just starting to get used to saying that a little bit.
Even the football team still sounds weird to me. But nonetheless, we're out telling you to sit him. He's projected for 18.78 points in PPR leagues, which is pretty darn good if you're a quarterback. Why are we telling you to sit him? Well, Lachlan, there's a couple reasons we're telling you to sit him. You might be asking yourself, you might have seen NFL News saying, well, Ty and Locke, do my eyes deceive me when I saw that Chase Young was going to be out for the first couple of weeks? No, they do not. That being said, still one of the best defensive lines in football, if I have to read them out to you. James Smith-Williams, Darren Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. That's the core defensive line. Absolute beasts. It's going to be hard, and even Coach Dan Campbell admitted that. I think Coach Dan Campbell, I watched the interview with him where he was talking about how good Washington's D-line was. A lot of coaches really rate them highly and have a lot of respect for it. It's not they're a sacking machine, Lachlan. They're going to be putting lots of pressure on Trevor Lawrence, who did not have a great first year whatsoever. Could it even be more of a sophomore slump? Nobody knows. But we're going to say that they're going to have a pretty tough time in Washington. And there's even added fuel to the fire since they're without maybe their best player on the roster in Chase Young. Those players are going to want to perform for him. And, you are on the Jaguars with the Jaguars' offensive line. That can only get you so far. So we're going to say sit Trevor Lawrence.
Yes, and that concludes the starts and sits.
And our episode, pretty much.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I'm so pumped for football to be back. It's unreal.
And even if you look at the Monday night game, you have Russ's first game not as a Seahawk playing
in Seattle. Yeah.
What a story that is. That's cool.
Well, the NFL schedulers, they know what they're doing.
Oh, they know.
They know what they're doing.
Goodell's a sneaky genius, man.
Come on.
Maniacal billionaire.
The thing I love too about the schedule is you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, these games are primetime here, these games are primetime there. But then when the season's coming down to the wire, last couple weeks, those primetime games are electric.
Yes.
Because there's usually a lot of playoff implications on the line. Because again, the schedulers know what they're doing. They know who's going to be in the fight for their playoff, for the wild card spots, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There's smart buggers, there's cheeky NFL people. But great slate of football coming up, ladies and gentlemen. If you keep forgetting, because this is a fantasy cash reminder every week, set your damn Thursday lineups.
Yep.
Thursday is not far away. Fantastic kickoff to the NFL season. We hope you've enjoyed our starts and sits episode. Once again, you can look forward to seeing this as a weekly feature in all our episodes because we love this game. We love seeing if we get right or wrong, but we're also a little bit we're cautiously optimistic, to say the least. But we think we gave you some good advice. We'll have an episode out next week, of course, as usual, and we'll be excited to break down how we did, break down the NFL games in general, players we liked, and Loch, we'll even have some waiver wire pickups for you next week.
Yes, and again, the waiver wire pickups now are going to be really, really good. Week 17, week 17.
Coming in, baby.
It's not going to be great. It's only going to get worse as we go further down the road this season. But
you're going to see some
excited.
stars.
Yeah.
One name I project, we were considering making him a start. I love Josh Palmer on the Chargers this year. I think he'll be a big waiver wire pick moving.
Yeah.
Lots left to be determined. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy a wonderful week of football. This has been the Fantasy Cast, Season 2, Episode 2. We're rolling along another week. Thank you so much for watching. Available on YouTube and Spotify. As always, I'm Ty White. He's Lachlan McTagg. And we'll see you next week. Enjoy the football.